question leaves a trail. Every story hides a clue. Truth is waiting in the silence. Come take the dive, I'll walk with you. Maine mirror, where truth comes into view.
Imagine for a second that you are sitting in this cramped, fluorescent-lit municipal meeting room.
Oh yeah, middle of summer.
Right, middle of summer. It is hour 2 of a budget hearing. The tempers are just boiling over. The air conditioning is, probably struggling to keep up.
Everyone is miserable.
Everyone. The citizens are exhausted. The local officials are super defensive. And people are just talking over each other constantly.
Chaos.
Total chaos. And then suddenly, a certified town manager leans into his microphone and admits to this room full of really angry taxpayers that the state's property tax formulas are easily manipulated.
Yeah, he actually calls it the dirty little secret of his profession.
Which is wild.
It's the kind of moment that makes everyone in the room, and honestly anyone reading the transcript later, just completely freeze.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is a staggering admission to make on the public record.
And today, that is exactly what we are taking a deep dive into. We have the raw transcript where that exact moment happened.
The July Belgrade Budget Committee meeting.
Yes, the July Belgrade Budget Committee meeting.
Right.
We have this verbatim, word-for-word record of a highly charged 2.5-hour collision between everyday taxpayers and local government bureaucracy.
Which I have to say is a remarkably rich piece of source material.
Oh, for sure.
We aren't looking at some polished press release or like a curated news clip here. We are looking at the messy, completely unfiltered mechanics of democracy just playing out in real time.
Right. And to be clear from the jump, we're not here to just, summarize a town agenda for you.
Whoa, no.
We are approaching this transcript as an investigative conversation. Our goal is to understand what this single, really emotional meeting reveals about local government, about the collapse of public trust, and honestly, the sheer mind-numbing complexity of municipal budgeting.
And it is so vital that we establish our baseline right now. We're analyzing this objectively.
Full flight, 100%.
We are not taking sides on the proposed citizen ordinance they're debating. We aren't taking sides on the actions of the committee members, and we aren't advocating for the citizens' specific demands either.
We're just looking at the facts.
Exactly. Our job is to unpack the perspectives presented in this room. We want to explore why these two groups of people can look at the exact same set of financial facts and arrive at wildly different, deeply antagonistic conclusions.
Because it escalated so far beyond just spreadsheets. I mean, this meeting has accusations of gaslighting.
Yeah.
It has citizens on Zoom yelling about condescension. It has that stunning admission about manipulating state tax laws we mentioned. And then, against all odds, it ends with this totally unexpected moment of shared vision.
It's a roller coaster.
It really is. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where does the tension actually begin?
Well, the inciting incident, the whole reason this room is packed and tempers are so high, is a citizen-led petition.
Okay.
A resident named Carol has brought forward a petition to create a new financial transparency ordinance in the town.
Got it.
And this isn't just, one person with a grievance. This petition is backed by over 276 certified local signatures.
Wow.
Which, in a small town, 276 signatures is a massive mobilization.
Oh, huge. It shows a highly organized, highly motivated, and frankly, highly frustrated group of residents.
Right. And so the town's select board essentially handed this petition down to the budget committee and said, hey, review this document and give us a recommendation on whether it goes on the November ballot for the whole town to vote on.
Okay, so the budget committee has to vet it.
Exactly. And the conflict ignites almost immediately over Section 1 of this petition.
What does Section 1 say?
The citizens wrote Section 1 to demand that taxpayers must be told the exact percentage increase in their property taxes and the impact on local rent before they are asked to vote on any town spending proposals.
Wait, hold on. That makes total sense to me.
Right.
Like, if I sit down at a restaurant and order a steak, the waiter doesn't wait until I've eaten it to, calculate the cost of the kitchen staff and the electricity and the beef and then hand me a surprise bill.
Right. They don't do that.
They tell me the steak is $50 before I order it. Why on earth does a town calculate taxes backward like this? Carol's demand to know the price before she votes sounds entirely reasonable.
It does sound reasonable, but that's because you are using the logic of private commerce and household budgeting.
Okay.
But municipal finance operates on an entirely different, almost counterintuitive mechanism.
How so?
Well, that disconnect is exactly what drives the frustration in this meeting. The citizens, like Carol and another resident named Mike, they repeatedly express the exhaustion of voting in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They feel they are being asked to approve spending without knowing the final price tag.
Which is exactly what Carol says. She uses an analogy in the meeting that I think just nails it. She says, I would never buy a truck unless I knew what was in my budget and if I could afford the truck.
Yes, the truck analogy.
She is accusing the town of making voters buy a truck blindfolded.
Mhm.
But when you read the transcript, the committee members, specifically Anthony and Sarah, they push back incredibly hard on this.
They do?
They argue that giving a specific percentage impact on an individual's tax bill prior to the vote is literally impossible.
Right.
So my question is, are they just dodging the question?
Yeah.
Or is the town genuinely incapable of giving a straight answer?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is a genuine mathematical impossibility based on how property taxes are structured in municipal law.
Really?
Yes, it is not a dodge. Let's walk through exactly how a town calculates your tax bill, because it explains why the committee is so frustrated by Section 1.
Okay, let's do it. Walk me through the math. Let's say we live in a hypothetical town, Deep Diveville.
Perfect. Deep Diveville. So in Deep Diveville, the town government doesn't just arbitrarily pick a tax rate at the start of the year.
Right.
First, they have to figure out how much money they need to operate. So they hold a town meeting, and the voters approve the spending. Let's say the voters approve $5 million in total spending for the police, the schools, the snowplows, everything.
Got it. $5 million.
No, the town doesn't tax you for that full $5 million. First, they subtract all the revenues they bring in from other sources.
Like what?
Things like state revenue sharing, vehicle excise taxes, permit fees, maybe the sale of town property. Let's say that all adds up to $2 million.
Okay.
They subtract that $2 million from the $5 million.
Leaving $3 million.
Exactly. That $3 million is called the tax levy.
Tax levy, okay.
That is the exact total aggregate amount of money the town must raise through property taxes to balance the budget. Now, the committee points out to the citizens, hey, we can give you the tax levy amount before you vote.
Right.
We can tell you we need to raise $3 million.
But $3 million is just a massive abstract number.
Right.
That doesn't tell me what my specific house in Deep Diveville is going to cost me this year.
And that's the rub. Because to figure out what your specific house costs, the town has to calculate the mill rate.
The mill rate, right.
They do this by taking that $3 million tax levy and dividing it by the total assessed valuation of every single piece of taxable property in the entire town.
Every house, every business?
Every house, every business, every plot of land.
Okay, so they just divide it by the town's total property value. Why can't they just do that calculation a month before the vote so people know the percentage increase?
Because the total assessed valuation of the town is not a static number. And it isn't finalized until much later in the year, long after the budget vote actually happens.
Wait, really?
Think about it. What if a major factory in town closes and its property value plummets?
Oh, I see.
What if a new housing development is built? What if the town does a complete revaluation of all real estate? The denominator in that equation, the total town property value, is constantly shifting.
I see. So if the denominator changes, the final mill rate changes.
Exactly. If the town's total property value goes up, the tax burden is spread out over more value, so the mill rate might actually go down, even if the town is spending more money overall. But if the town's total value drops, the mill rate skyrockets. So when Anthony and Sarah are sitting in this meeting, they are looking at a petition that demands they publish the exact percentage tax increase before the vote.
Right.
And they are saying, we legally and mathematically cannot do this because we do not have the final property assessments yet. The variables for the equation literally do not exist.
So it's a massive communication breakdown.
Complete
Breakdown.
The citizens are demanding a destination. They want to know the price of the truck. And the committee is desperately trying to explain that the municipal engine simply hasn't been built to drive them there yet.
That's precisely it. You are witnessing the collision between the moral language of a citizen-drafted petition and the rigid structural reality of municipal statute.
Yeah.
The citizens are speaking the language of a household checkbook, where money in equals money out. The committee is speaking the language of aggregate levies and fluctuating assessments.
And this clash becomes glaringly obvious when Carol talks about rent.
Oh, yes, the rent issue. Because the petition explicitly demands that the town states in the impact of proposed spending on local rent prices. And Anthony points out, rightfully so, that the town has absolutely zero capability of knowing how much of a property tax increase a private landlord is going to pass on to a tenant.
Right, that is a private business decision.
Exactly. A landlord could absorb the tax hike, or they could double the rent. The town doesn't control that.
But listen to the underlying logic of the citizens here.
Okay.
To a resident, it's a straight line. Taxes go up, my landlord raises my rent. Therefore, the town should be able to tell me how much my rent will go up.
Yeah, cause and effect.
It makes perfect intuitive sense to the voter, even though it's administratively impossible for the government to predict.
And because neither side is backing down, they just stop hearing each other. The citizens feel the committee is hiding behind complicated math to avoid transparency.
Yep.
They think, you guys are smart, you run the town, you could figure out an estimate. And the committee feels the citizens have drafted a legally unworkable, totally reckless document that, if it actually passes, will force the town to either break the law, make up fake numbers, or get sued.
Which perfectly sets the stage for what happens next.
Right.
If Section 1 was a skirmish over the timeline of math, Section 5 takes us deep into the treacherous fog of municipal jargon.
Oh, boy.
This is where the meeting really starts to derail.
So Section 5 of the petition attempts to put a hard cap on the town's reserve funds.
Yes.
It specifically states that it wants to cap, quote, unencumbered surplus funds at 15%. Now, to me, unencumbered surplus funds just sounds like extra cash lying around.
Sure.
But in the transcript, these three words trigger an almost painful level of confusion and panic among the committee members.
Because if you work in municipal finance, those three words string together like that are an absolute nightmare.
Wow.
Because they blur distinctly separate legal categories of money. Let's break this down, because understanding this jargon is crucial to understanding why the citizens feel so manipulated.
Okay, let's slow this way down. Let's start with appropriation. What does that actually mean in a town budget?
An appropriation is simply the legal authorization to spend money. When the citizens vote at a town meeting and say, we authorize $100,000 for road repair, that $100,000 is now appropriated.
Okay.
It doesn't mean it's spent yet. It just means the town has permission to spend it on roads.
Right. It's like my wife and I agreeing we're going to spend $1,000 on a new refrigerator this year.
Exactly.
We haven't bought it, but we've authorized the household to spend it. Okay, so what is an encumbrance?
An encumbrance happens when the town legally commits that appropriated money to a specific vendor, usually by signing a contract or issuing a purchase order, but they haven't actually paid the invoice yet.
So using the road example, the town votes to authorize $100K for roads. That's the appropriation. Then the town manager signs a contract with Bob's paving company to fill the potholes in September. That money is now encumbered. It's spoken for, even if Bob hasn't poured the asphalt yet.
Exactly. It's locked in. Now, what is a surplus?
Okay, yeah.
A surplus is created at the end of the fiscal year when either the town brings in more revenue than it expected, maybe car registrations were way up, or when departments don't spend all their appropriated money.
And this is where the citizens in the meeting bring up the pencil example, right?
Yes. The citizens use a great, highly relatable example. They say, what if the Public Works Department has an appropriation for office supplies, and at the end of the year, they haven't spent $500 meant for pencils?
Just sitting there.
Right. The citizens are annoyed because they feel like that pencil money shouldn't just sit in a hidden departmental account. It should be returned to the taxpayers or used to lower next year's taxes.
They view it as hoarding.
They absolutely view it as hoarding. Which leads us to the final and really most important term here, unassigned fund balance.
Okay, unassigned fund balance. What is that?
The unassigned fund balance is the ultimate municipal safety net. It is the cumulative pool of money that has no specific legal string attached to it.
None at all.
None. It's not encumbered for roads. It's not appropriated for schools. It is the town's general savings account, meant to handle catastrophic emergencies or massive cash flow issues.
So when the citizens draft a petition trying to cap unencumbered surplus funds at 15%, they are trying to say, stop hoarding our money in these various accounts.
Right.
But the committee looks at that phrasing and panics. Why exactly do they panic?
Because of how capital-intensive running a town actually is. And the committee brings up the perfect counterexample to the pencil money, the fire truck.
Right, a $750,000 piece of emergency equipment.
Think about the mechanics of buying a fire truck for a small town. They cannot possibly put a $750,000 line item into a single year's operating budget.
Oh, obviously not.
If they did, the mill rate would explode and taxes would double overnight. Voters would revolt.
Yeah, that'd be political suicide.
So, responsible towns save up for a fire truck over 5, 8, or 10 years. They put a little bit of money away each year into a capital reserve account.
Like a family saving up for a down payment on a house. You don't pay it all at once out of your monthly paycheck. You build a fund.
Precisely. But here is the critical legal snag with the citizens' petition. The money sitting in that fire truck reserve account is not technically encumbered.
Wait, why not? Everyone knows it's for the fire truck.
Because the town hasn't signed a purchase order with a fire truck manufacturer yet.
Oh, I see.
They are still saving up. So legally, on paper, that money is unencumbered.
Wow.
The committee realizes that if this petition passes as written, capping all unencumbered surplus funds at 15%, it might legally force the town to empty out the fire truck savings account just to comply with the cap.
Wow. Okay, so the committee is sitting there thinking, if this poorly worded petition passes, it's going to literally break our ability to buy emergency equipment without bankrupting the town.
Yes.
While the citizens are sitting across the table thinking, we just want to stop you from burying our tax dollars in 50 different hidden accounts.
Exactly.
It's a complete failure to communicate the mechanics of government.
And this brings us to one of the most compelling voices in the entire transcript. A citizen named Mike.
Mike, yeah.
Mike brings a fascinating perspective because he actually has a background working in water utilities over in Augusta.
So he knows the system.
He has experience with municipal budgets, so he isn't just speaking from blind anger. He understands the structural issues, and he voices the ultimate primal frustration of the taxpayer in this system.
Yeah. Mike points out that when citizens go to vote on the budget, they are handed these hyper-specific warrants. A warrant is basically a line item question like, do you vote to spend $40,000 on the library roof repair?
Right.
Do you vote to spend $15,000 on a new police cruiser laptop? The voters get all these micro-level details, but they never get a summary sheet. They never get a document that says, if you vote yes on all these things, your total town budget goes up by X amount.
And Mike delivers what is undeniably the most memorable, perfect analogy of the entire 2.5-hour meeting. He describes the experience of voting on a municipal budget.
The Mona Lisa quote.
Yes.
He says, voting on the budget in this town is, quote, like painting the Mona Lisa looking through a straw. I see your eyeball over here, but we never see the whole picture.
It is a brilliant image, because he is absolutely right about the psychological effect of this process. The town is forcing the taxpayers to act as micromanagers, voting on pencil budgets and roof repairs, but depriving them of the macro view, the total cost of the painting.
And it raises a really profound structural question. Are municipal budgets just inherently too complicated for an ordinary person to parse? Or has this specific town, Belgrade, just fundamentally failed to communicate the reality of its finances to its people?
It's a great question.
The citizens in that room clearly believe it's the latter. They believe the town can provide the whole picture, but actively chooses not to in order to keep taxes rising smoothly.
Which brings us back to that 15% cap the citizens want on the reserve funds. Sarah, one of the committee members, tries to inject some national standard into the debate here.
Right.
She cites the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA. This is the premier professional organization for public finance officials in the U.S.
The experts.
The experts. Sarah points out that the GFOA strongly recommends that towns maintain an unassigned fund balance, that ultimate safety net we talked about of at least 25% or roughly 6 months of operating expenses.
Well, 6 months makes sense. I mean, most financial advisors tell individuals to keep 3 to 6 months of living expenses in an emergency fund.
Exactly. And Sarah notes that small towns are particularly vulnerable.
How so?
They don't have massive tax bases, and they often lack the ability to borrow money quickly or cheaply on the bond market. If the boiler in the middle school catastrophically fails in February, you can't wait for a town vote to fix it. You need cash on hand immediately to keep the pipes from freezing.
Right, you need liquidity.
The town's current reserve is hovering around 22%, which is actually below the GFOA recommendation, but generally in line with best practices.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
If the national experts at the GFOA recommend 25% and the town is currently at 22%, why are 276 local citizens aggressively organizing to force a 15% cap? Are they just being reckless?
No.
Do they not understand the risk of a blown school boiler? Or is there something deeper driving this?
It is entirely about something deeper. It is an issue of broken trust, not financial illiteracy. Think about the voters' experience over the last 5 years. They see their property taxes going up year after year. Then they look at the town's audit or balance sheet, and they see millions of dollars sitting in accounts labeled unassigned or surplus.
To a taxpayer struggling to pay inflation-level grocery prices, a multi-million-dollar unassigned surplus feels like a slap in the face.
It feels wrong. It feels like they're being aggressively overtaxed. The town officials view that money as a deeply responsible, necessary rainy day fund to protect the town's bond rating and infrastructure.
Sure.
But the citizens view it as a slush fund. And because the town has never provided that Mona Lisa summary sheet, because they have never sat down and clearly, plainly explained why the 25% is an existential necessity, that quiet suspicion ferments into a legally binding petition.
It's the fear that the complicated math is being weaponized against them.
Yes.
That underlying anxiety that taxpayers are being deliberately gamed by a system they aren't allowed to fully see is the invisible elephant in the room for the first half of this transcript. But then we hit Section 3 of the petition. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
That invisible anxiety, it gets explicitly, spectacularly validated by an on-the-record admission from a town official.
This is truly the hinge point of the entire transcript.
Yeah.
It's the moment the meeting goes from a dry debate over reserve funds to an existential argument about government integrity.
Yeah.
Section 3 of the Citizens Petition seeks to cap property tax increases by tying them to the Consumer Price Index, or CPI.
Basically inflation.
Basically inflation. The petition demands that the town cannot raise total taxes more than the rate of inflation unless the voters specifically approve an override in a general election.
Which, again, to the average voter, sounds like common sense.
Right.
Keep government spending tied to economic reality.
Right.
If milk and gas go up 3%, my property taxes shouldn't go up 10%. Just constrain the system. But this demand sparks an intense historical debate in the room. They bring up a piece of state history known as LD1.
Yes. For anyone outside of Maine, we need to dive into what LD1 was, because you cannot understand the emotional weight of this meeting without it.
Okay, lay it on us.
LD1 stands for Legislative Document 1. It was a massive, landmark piece of state legislation passed in Maine back in 2005. Its official title was An Act to Increase the State's Share of Education Costs, Reduce Property Taxes, and Reduce Government Spending at All Levels.
That is quite the title. It promises exactly what this local petition is trying to do.
It was a statewide effort to force the exact kind of constraint the Belgrade citizens are asking for. Maine was facing a property tax crisis in the early 2000s, and voters were threatening to pass draconian tax caps via referendum.
So the state stepped in.
To stave that off, the state legislature created LD1. It established an incredibly complex formula that every single municipality had to follow to calculate their property tax levy limit. It was a mathematical ceiling on how much revenue a town could raise.
How did the formula actually work? Because clearly it didn't last.
The core mechanism of LD1 was a formula that combined two growth factors. It allowed a town's property tax levy to grow by the percentage of new property development in the town, like new houses being built, plus the state's average growth in personal income.
Okay.
So if the town grew a little and people's incomes grew a little, the town's budget could grow a little. If you wanted to spend more than that formula allowed, the town council or the voters had to explicitly vote to override the LD1 limit.
But Carol, the citizen who brought the Belgrade petition, points out in the meeting that LD1 was a failure.
It was.
The legislature eventually gutted it, and towns routinely overrode it. It failed to keep taxes down. But the explosive moment in this transcript doesn't come from Carol. It comes from Anthony Wilson.
Right. Anthony is a member of the Budget Committee, but more importantly, he is a certified Maine town manager with a master's degree in public administration.
He's a pro.
He has spent years in the trenches actually running municipalities. He is an absolute insider.
And Anthony states, on the public record, that he used to be the guy who had to perform those mandated LD1 calculations for municipalities.
Yep.
And here's his exact quote. He says, the LD1 formulas, quote, were very easily manipulated if someone wanted to, in order to reach whatever conclusion the town manager wanted.
Just brutal honesty.
And then he characterizes this manipulation as, quote, the dirty little secret among Maine managers forever.
We really have to pause and deeply analyze why that specific phrase is so profoundly significant.
Yeah, please.
Imagine the psychology of that room. You have dozens of citizens who already deeply distrust the government. They already believe that the formulas, the jargon, the mill rates, and the encumbrances are just tools being used to hide the truth and extract more money from their wallets.
Right.
And then a sitting official, a highly educated town manager, looks them in the eye and essentially says, you know what, you're right. We absolutely manipulated the state-mandated formulas to get the tax numbers we wanted, and everyone in my profession knows it.
It is the ultimate validation of their paranoia.
Exactly.
It's like telling someone who thinks their house is haunted that you built the house and installed hidden speakers in the walls. He confirms their worst fears.
He really does.
But as journalists, we have to be incredibly careful here. We have to distinguish fact from assertion. What Anthony is asserting is his personal experience and his claim about the broader culture of Maine town managers regarding a specific, now defunct law.
Right, exactly. We must clearly demarcate this. It is an objective fact that Anthony said this in a public meeting. It is a fact that he claimed this manipulation was a dirty little secret.
Yes.
What remains unverified is whether this manipulation was actually systemic across the entire state of Maine, whether it was technically illegal fraud, or whether it was simply managers finding clever, entirely legal loopholes in a deeply flawed, overly complex piece of legislation.
Right, because you mentioned LD1 was notoriously
It
convoluted.
was incredibly convoluted. It had exceptions for new property growth, exceptions for school funding, exceptions for county taxes.
So many loopholes.
So many. In the municipal finance world, manipulation often doesn't mean changing numbers on a spreadsheet. It means aggressive legal optimization.
What does that look like in practice?
A town manager might look at a budget and say, well, if we classify this road repair as a routine expense, it hits our LD1 cap. But if we classify it as a capital improvement, it's exempt from the cap. It's highly probable that managers were just aggressively applying every possible legal exemption to maximize the allowable tax levy because they still had to fund the fire department and plow the snow, regardless of what the state formula said.
So it might not have been illegal, but it was certainly a violation of the spirit of the law.
Definitely.
But to the citizens in that Belgrade meeting room, the nuance of legal optimization versus fraud does not matter.
Not at all.
The word manipulated is what lands. It confirms that the math can't be trusted.
But this sets up a really fascinating philosophical paradox in the argument.
It really does. Look at what Carol and Anthony are actually arguing about here. Carol wants a mathematical cap, the CPI, to stop taxes from rising.
Yeah.
She wants a hard, fast rule to force the town to behave.
Right.
But Anthony is arguing that historical caps, like LD1, didn't actually lower taxes at all. They just invited bureaucrats to manipulate the math behind the scenes. So it raises this massive structural question. Does adding more complex rules and caps to government actually increase transparency, or does it just create more shadows for the math to hide in?
That is the philosophical core of this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
The citizens fundamentally believe that a strict, binding rule will force honesty. The government official is telling them that a strict rule will simply force creativity.
Wow.
Anthony is essentially saying, you cannot legislate good management. If you don't trust the people running the formulas, changing the formula won't help you because we know how to beat the formula.
It's staggering. It's a completely cynical view of government regulation delivered by a government official. And what's equally staggering is the tone in which this entire exchange happens. Anthony's bluntness might be refreshing in its honesty about LD1, but his delivery and the growing exhaustion of everyone in the room sets the stage for an absolute breakdown.
Oh, the tension is palpable.
It's been simmering for an hour and a half, and that dirty little secret comment is like throwing a match on a puddle of gasoline. It ignites a firestorm regarding civic decorum.
We really need to track the emotional progression of this meeting to understand why it erupts. From the very first page of the transcript, you can read the irritation.
Oh, yeah.
There are constant interruptions. Citizens like Carol and officials like Anthony and Bruce, the chair, are repeatedly talking over one another. There's a fundamental lack of a structured dialogue framework.
At one point early on, Bruce tries to assert control. He tries to invoke Robert's Rules of Order, saying people need to be formally acknowledged by the chair before speaking.
Right.
But it's immediately pointed out by another committee member that the Budget Committee hasn't even officially adopted Robert's Rules.
They're just winging it.
They are operating in this weird, informal limbo. It's a formal public hearing with legal implications, but it's devolving into a chaotic kitchen table argument.
And because there are no accepted rules of engagement, the raw emotions dictate the flow of the meeting. You have to look at the psychology of both sides here.
Okay.
The committee members feel incredibly frustrated because they believe they are doing the real, tedious, thankless work of government. They are looking at a petition that they genuinely believe is legally flawed, what they call inartfully worded, and potentially dangerous to the town's financial health if it accidentally defunds the fire truck reserves.
They're trying to protect the town.
In their eyes, yes. They feel they are trying to explain the logistical legal realities, and they feel the citizens are just stubbornly refusing to listen to reason.
And the citizens feel completely and utterly dismissed.
Entirely.
They feel they've done the heavy lifting of democracy. They went out, they talked to their neighbors, they gathered 276 signatures, they followed the democratic process, and they feel the committee is nitpicking their grammar, hiding behind state statutes, and condescending to them, rather than addressing the desperate spirit of their demands.
Which brings us to the climax of the tension. And remarkably, the explosion doesn't come from the physical room itself.
No, it doesn't.
It comes from a citizen joining via Zoom.
Yes, Ms. Gagney. For most of the meeting, she has been a silent digital observer on the screen.
Just watching.
But as the argument over LD1 and the implementation of the petition reaches a boiling point, she unmutes herself and she interrupts the proceedings to publicly reprimand Anthony for his behavior toward Carol.
Her exact words are crucial because they define the emotional stakes. She says, "The way that this meeting is being held is very unprofessional, sir. The way that you have been talking to her is condescending and you're gaslighting.
Yeah.
You, sir, have been elected to represent us. You are not going to sit there and condescend her and talk down to her, sir."
It is a breathtaking moment because she isn't arguing about mill rates or encumbrances or CPI caps. She cuts right through the math and argues about the fundamental social contract between the governed and the governing.
She is calling out the power dynamic in the room.
Exactly.
This raises an incredibly important question about modern civic life. How much of what we call bad government is actually just bad communication?
That's a great point.
When you read the transcript carefully, Anthony isn't technically wrong on the municipal law. He's accurately trying to explain why the petition's wording regarding unencumbered funds is legally problematic.
Right, the facts are on his side.
But his delivery, his obvious frustration at having to explain complex municipal systems to lay people who don't want to hear it, is perceived as arrogant. The citizens perceive his expertise not as a helpful resource, but as a weapon being wielded against them to make them feel stupid.
It's the classic dynamic that breeds populism.
Very much so.
The expert says, "You don't understand the nuance." The citizen says, "You are using nuance as an excuse to ignore my core problem, which is my tax bill." Are these two sides actually ideological enemies?
No.
Or are they just speaking entirely different languages? Legalese versus common sense.
They are definitely speaking different languages. But the emotional reaction from Ms. Gagney on Zoom shows that the language barrier itself is viewed as an intentional act of hostility.
Yeah.
When the government speaks in a language the citizens don't understand, the citizens assume they are being actively lied to. Gaslighting is a very strong psychological term, but in this civic context, it means you are trying to convince me that the reality I see, my rising taxes and my shrinking paycheck, isn't real
Right.
because of some mathematical formula you refuse to fully explain.
It is the absolute peak of the emotional tension in the meeting. You have citizens yelling on Zoom, committee members throwing up their hands in exhaustion, accusations of dirty secrets, manipulation, and gaslighting. It feels like the meeting is destined to end in total irreconcilable gridlock.
It really does.
It feels like we are watching local democracy just break down in real time.
But then something incredible happens.
Right. This is why this deep dive is so fascinating. Just when you think the whole thing's going to collapse under the weight of its own dysfunction, a breakthrough occurs.
A major shift.
We enter the final hour of the meeting, and we see this completely unexpected convergence.
It is a remarkable, almost whiplash-inducing shift in the room's energy. Despite aggressively, bitterly disagreeing on the mechanics, the legality, and the vocabulary of the petition itself, the participants suddenly find massive, undeniable common ground on the intent of the petition.
It starts with Jillian, the vice chair of the committee. Throughout the chaotic meeting, Jillian has been trying to play the peacemaker, trying to validate the citizens' feelings while defending the math.
She's the mediator.
And in the final hour, she openly admits that the committee's past budget presentations to the public have been, quote, lackluster. She says it's really just been us handing out things and saying, read this and understand it.
That admission of fault from a sitting committee member completely changes the dynamic.
It disarms everyone.
Suddenly, the citizens and the officials aren't fighting over whether the town is doing a bad job communicating. The town is publicly agreeing that they are doing a bad job communicating.
It's like a pressure valve releasing.
Yeah.
And from that single admission of vulnerability, a consensus starts to build rapidly. Mike, the citizen with the water utility background, talks about the need for a formal capital replacement fund policy.
Yes.
He says he's never seen a town operate without a clear document outlining long-term savings, and the committee members agree. They say, you're right, we want one too.
They all start agreeing on the tangible deliverables. Mike, Carol, Anthony, Jillian, Kathy Belandi. They all enthusiastically agree that the town desperately needs a transparent capital improvement plan, or CIP.
Right.
They agree they need that unified summary sheet, the Mona Lisa view of the budget that Mike was asking for. They agree they need to start the budget cycle earlier in the year so citizens have actual time to digest the numbers before the vote.
It is surreal to read. The very people who were accusing each other of gaslighting and manipulation 20 minutes earlier are now violently agreeing with each other about what the town actually needs to function better.
It's a complete 180.
The citizens say, we need transparency. The committee says, we agree, we want transparency too.
But this shared vision immediately hits the roadblock of the petition itself.
Right, because the document still exists.
Because the committee members look down at the petition on the table, which is a formal legal document that they cannot edit or alter, and they still believe the text is fatally flawed.
Yeah.
They still believe the language about the 15% cap and the CPI inflation limit is unworkable and will cause financial chaos for the town.
So they are trapped.
Yeah.
How do you honor the intent and the passion of 276 citizens while rejecting the literal text of their petition?
The committee executes a very specific procedural maneuver. They vote to recommend to the select board that the citizen petition not be placed on the November ballot.
They vote no.
They vote no. They officially argue that it is too inartfully worded to become a permanent ordinance.
Which, if you are a citizen who pounded the pavement for weeks to gather those signatures, feels like a massive, deflating defeat. It feels like the bureaucrats found a technicality to kill your grassroots movement.
But the committee attaches a massive mandate to their negative recommendation. They don't just vote no and walk away.
What do?
The motion, which they unanimously pass, states that the Budget Committee themselves will draft a comprehensive financial policy that incorporates the concepts and the spirit of the citizen petition.
Wow.
Furthermore, they mandate that this new policy must be completed by January, in time for the fiscal year 28 budget cycle. And crucially, they request that a member of the Select Board be appointed to participate in the drafting process alongside them.
They are essentially looking at the citizens and saying, your vehicle is broken, but your destination is right. Give us 6 months to build a legal vehicle that actually works, and we will take you there.
It's an attempt to turn a blunt instrument, a citizen petition, into a precision tool of governance.
Right.
They want to codify the transparency the citizens are demanding, but they want to do it through internal town policy rather than a binding, inflexible voter ordinance that might accidentally defund the fire department.
Which brings us to the investigative focus of our deep dive. Because while the meeting ends with this hopeful compromise, it leaves us with massive unanswered questions.
Tons of them.
Questions that require actual journalistic follow-up and public reporting, not just speculation.
Absolutely. There are major loose ends here. The first question is, will the Select Board actually honor this recommendation? The Budget Committee is only an advisory body.
Right. They don't have the final say.
They don't make the final call. The Select Board has the ultimate authority over what goes on the ballot.
Second, if the petition has the required 276 certified legal signatures, can the Select Board legally keep it off the ballot just because the Budget Committee promises to write a policy alternative?
That's a huge legal question.
The citizens in the meeting pointed out that state law generally dictates that if a petition meets the signature requirements, it must go to the voters. The Select Board might not even have the legal authority to say no, regardless of how flawed the wording is.
And third, even if the Select Board can legally keep it off the ballot, will the citizens accept that outcome? Will the people who organize this movement accept a town policy drafted by officials behind closed doors in place of a voter-mandated ordinance?
I mean, Carol made it very clear during the meeting that internal policies can be quietly changed or ignored by future committees.
Right, whereas an ordinance is a binding law. She wants the permanence of an ordinance.
It is the ultimate civic cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And it poses this huge philosophical question for you, the listener, to chew on.
Yeah.
Is this final outcome a victory for representative democracy? Because you have local experts taking raw public outcry, validating it, and promising to draft a nuanced, workable policy based on that passion. Or is this a defeat for direct democracy? Because you have bureaucrats using legal technicalities and jargon to kill a grassroots petition that clearly represents the will of a significant portion of the electorate.
It depends entirely on your perspective on the role of government, and that is exactly why this raw transcript is so incredibly valuable to analyze.
Absolutely.
It shows that democracy isn't a static thing. It's the constant grinding friction between these two ideals, the passion of the crowd versus the expertise of the bureaucracy.
It really is an incredible journey. We started this deep dive talking about a single municipal meeting on a random Tuesday in July.
Right, in a hot room.
In a hot room. But it wasn't just about spreadsheets or mill rates or encumbrances. This was a microscopic look at democracy in action. It featured intense passion, deep frustration, stunning revelations about the history of state tax manipulation, and ultimately a community forcing its own government to acknowledge a desperate demand for daylight and transparency.
And if we can step back from Belgrade specifically for a moment and look at the nature of the public record itself.
Yeah, let's do that.
In an era of polished PR statements, political spin rooms, and highly curated social media echo chambers, this raw, messy, 2.5-hour transcript is a vital historical artifact.
It really is.
Preserving public meetings like this as part of the public record is absolutely crucial, especially when communities are working through painful, difficult, highly emotional issues in real time. It proves that democracy is not a finished, polished product.
Not at all.
It is a live, often frustrating, occasionally ugly, but absolutely essential conversation.
It is the murky, complicated reality of how we actually govern ourselves. Thank you so much for joining us on this investigation today. I highly encourage you to look up your own local budget committee, see when they meet, and maybe sit in on a session.
Definitely go.
Look at their summary sheets. Ask about their reserve funds. You might be surprised by what you hear. We will be back soon, digging into another stack of sources on the next deep dive.
Every question leaves a trail. Every story hides a clue. Truth is waiting in the silence. Come take the dive, I'll walk with you. Maine mirror, where truth comes into view.